Next game was a shootout. 39-37, the Texans beat the Bucs. Baker Mayfield was 21-30, 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 4 carries for 4 yards. Another guy, super steady fantasy quarterback. Not someone you want to play with a bad matchup, but there are worse options available than Baker Mayfield for sure. That high-end streaming sort of quarterback. Rachaad White, 20 carries, 73 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He is going to maintain his value. He does not have the most efficient rushing lines, but when you compare him to Keyshawn Vaughn and Chase Edmonds, those guys aren't getting those, like, they're not even getting Rachaad White level yards per carry. So Keyshawn Vaughn, just the 4 carries for 9 yards. Chase Edmonds, 3 carries, -5. Keep playing Rachaad White. I don't think that volume is going anywhere, especially with that trade deadline already passed and Leonard Fournette's on the Bills. So I think Rachaad White is going to be the workhorse back here going forward, and there just aren't very many workhorse backs at all in fantasy. So Rachaad White, really solid floor play as we go forward. Mike Evans, 4 catches, 87 yards on 5 targets, 12.7 fantasy points will do. Keep playing him. I don't think he's a lock it in, set it and forget it type guy, but definitely like teetering on that. Not quite there, but a tier or 2 below that. Cade Otton, 6 catches, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think this will be the highest stat line he has all year. He usually doesn't have super explosive stats like this. Usually Mike Evans will get some of those receiving touchdowns, but still, this is awesome stuff from Cade Otton. More of a floor play than somebody you would expect numbers like this every single week. Trey McBride had 3 catches for 51 yards on 4 targets. I think he's a interesting dynasty stash. Rachaad White, 4 catches, 46 yards. He adds volume as a receiver as well as a workhorse runner. So Rachaad White, again, really solid floor play every week. Chris Godwin, disappointing stuff here. 2 catches, 16 yards on 6 targets. He was putting together some really steady, productive, consistent fantasy production here in the last few weeks, but he went back down to earth on this one. I still think you play him as you normally would. Chase Edmonds, 1 catch for -1 yards, and Keyshawn Vaughn had a catch for -1 as well. For the Texans, CJ Stroud locked up Rookie of the Year in this game. 32 of 42, 470 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had, that's interesting, 0 carries for 10 yards. But CJ Stroud, absolutely, add him if he was on your wire. I don't think this is the start of him putting up, these crazy almost 500 yards, 5 touchdown games every week, but just the fact that he's capable of this puts him ahead of a lot of quarterbacks, definitely ahead of those waiver wire quarterbacks like a Baker Mayfield. He is a really solid play every week. Just keep in mind what he had been doing leading up to this game. He was kind of getting us that Matthew Stafford level of production here lately, but having an explosion like this can really get things going, especially when the running game is getting absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter who their running back is. Dameon Pierce, Devin Singletary, they both stink. 13 carries, 26 yards for Singletary with Dameon Pierce out with that injury. Xavier Hutchinson, the rookie receiver, had a carry for 12, and he was the second leading rusher. Mike Boone had a carry for 3. Tank Dell had 2 carries for 2. If I were the Texans, I would be running a lot more end arounds with Tank Dell than trying to get anything going with Devin Singletary or Dameon Pierce, because Tank Dell looks super explosive in the open field, like special levels of explosive. That's the guy I think they want to feed here. Not so much like trying to get a ground game going, because that's just not going to happen. We've seen enough games of this ground game to know that it's just as stagnant gets right now. So if you have Devin Singletary, I think you hold on to him while Dameon Pierce is out. But as soon as Dameon Pierce comes back, I think you could drop Singletary. I think you could drop Pierce. This running game just totally stinks. Noah Brown, he has really solid chemistry with CJ Stroud going back to their Ohio State days. 6 catches, 153 yards, and a touchdown is awesome stuff. I think he's more a sell high than an add, because I think CJ Stroud isn't going to just explode like this every single game. But having said that, Stroud still really likes throwing to Brown, so there are worse ads for sure. Dalton Schultz went nuts. 10 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown on 11 targets. Just stellar stuff. He is absolutely a tight end you want to add. he's going to be super up and down. So don't expect crazy production like this all the time, but he's providing more consistent production than a lot of tight ends are right now. So definitely, if Dalton Schultz is on your wire, go get him. Another guy, if Tank Dell is on your wire, go get him immediately. 6 catches, 114 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, 11 targets. This is the receiver I think we want on the Texans. If we are adding any receiver here, Nico Collins, Noah Brown, Tank Dell, even Robert Woods, Tank Dell is the guy. He has all the ability. Like I said earlier, his explosion is just on another planet. He has all the talent in the world. I know he's small, but he can make big plays happen. He can make just special things happen with the ball in his hands, and he's going to run some extraordinary routes. So definitely add Tank Dell if he is on your wire. Nico Collins, 3 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown. He's going to be an interesting sell high here after this touchdown. 14.4 fantasy points. I think that's enough to be a sell high, even though he was the number 4 targeted receiver in this one. I still think Nico Collins, he is not somebody you can rely on every single week. He's going to be up and down. I think all these Texans receivers are going to be up and down for the most part. Like I said earlier, I would rather have Tank Dell than Collins. But Collins, he is what he is. I don't think there's going to be any predicting what the spike weeks are going to be. So I would trade him if I were a Nico Collins manager at the moment. John Mechie, just the 1 catch for 14 yards. Andrew Beck had 2 catches for 5. And Devin Singletary had 2 catches for 0 yards.